So good morning, gentlemen. We are the beekeepers. It's me, Riley, and Josh, and today we'll be talking about honeypots. Now, everybody knows what a honeypot is. It's not new to anybody. There was actually a movie called The Interview where they actually used a honeypot to try to trick somebody into doing something they didn't want to do. So today we're going to talk about three types of honeypots. We're a low interaction, intermediate, and more of an advanced honeypot. With the description, you're going to see three different honeypots that show three different things, how they can be used. So in this first slide, what is a honeypot? What's the purpose of it? So as you all know, it's used to manufacture something fake to get away from something real. So in here, we found four different types of honeypots. You have an email, you have a decoy, you have a malware, and you have a spider honeypot. So give us a few seconds. You can read through those. I'm not going to read those for you. It's a lot of words. Next slide. So like I said before, there's three levels of honeypots that we found out. You have a low interaction, a medium, and a high. A low interaction honeypot is a honeypot where it really does nothing. You just don't know what's happening. There's also not a lot of interface that the attacker or the hacker is doing. It's really low. It's the basic of the basic when it comes down to honeypots. Now you have a medium interaction honeypots, which consists of a little bit more touchy feeling. The attacker has to do a little bit more, but they're going to get through it sooner or later. And with the high interaction honeypots, you have those honeypots where the attacker has to do so much more just to get through. And a lot of times they don't know they're actually in a honeypot until it's too late and you already found who they are, what they're doing, their IP address, which we'll get into more as the slides go through. So a low interaction honeypot is one I created called an SSH tar pit. And it was an endless SSH tar pit. And all it did was make the attacker not think they were getting in, and it just slowed them down. So with this low interaction honeypot, as the attacker's trying to get into my system using an SSH, it'll say connecting, it'll say everything, but it's moving really, really slow. And then they're sitting, waiting, and wasting their time. And a more advanced hacker is going to realize they're in a low interaction honeypot relatively quickly, more like 5 to 10 minutes. This honeypot, this low interaction, is more of basic users who just trying to get in to the cybersecurity world, who are just started getting into the red team. So that's what this honeypot is. So an endless is an SSH tar pit that is very slow. It says an endless random SSH banner. It keeps its SSH clients locked up for hours or even days at a time. The purpose is to put your real SSH server on another port and let the script kiddies get stuck in a tar pit instead of bothering you. We actually tried this. This was one of the first honeypots that we actually created, and it did work. It's just really slow. But like I said before, this is low interaction. There's not that much to do besides putting an IP address and trying to get in my system. So these next slides, Riley and Josh are going to talk about these medium to more high interaction honeypots. When you actually get more data, you get more information. So at this point, Riley will be taking over and getting more into depth into the more advanced honeypots and how they're used. But before we do that, understand that honeypots are not the end game. You still need a firewall. You still need antivirus software. You still need a lot more. Honeypots are primarily used by more self-centered people. When I say that, I mean people like you and me. We're in our home. We create a honeypot on our computer so people can't get in. A lot more businesses will try to use a honeypot, but they stick more to virus scanners, firewalls, and things of that nature. And pros and cons of honeypots. What are the pros of it? Well, it pisses people off. You make a honeypot, somebody trying to get into your computer. Now they're like, really? You're going to make me work for it? And the cons is it's actually really simple to get through honeypots if you know what you're doing. So now Riley's going to take over and he's going to demonstrate how more medium to skilled level honeypots are placed.
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to be talking about honeypots in the cloud and one piece of software that we built to be able to create and gather information on potential hackers. So typically organizations facing the World Wide Web, there's going to be, no matter what organization, what they do, There's going to be tons of attacks coming in on them, which we found that you'll see later in this. There's going to be probing, probing different ports, see any avenues to get into the corporate network. A lot of these can be botnets people have built, and they'll just be kind of firing randomly at these ports. These attackers can be extremely sophisticated, can be government agencies, organized crimes, that type of thing, or they can be low sophistication, just an individual trying to basically get what they can. Defense also can go through various levels of sophistication with IPSs, IDSs, that type of thing. And typically, what you would see in a successful honeypot is it would be placed within the demilitarized zone of your company. So, say an attacker can get through the first firewall, then he would just be enticed by the honeypot, get trapped there, and we can gather data on him. So these intermediate honeypots, they're intermediate because if you were to build a honeypot yourself from the ground up, you're kind of dipping your toes into the software development world. So there's plenty of pre-built tools online that you can download and install. And so there's some pros and cons of having pre-built tools. The pros would be they're low complexity. You don't have to be a developer to implement them and deploy them. They're fast and they can be scaled very well. Some cons could be that there is a set configuration and it might be a little bit more difficult to make it specific to your industry. The one we used, it has a few different selections you can make, whether it's healthcare, general, or there was a few other ones that we didn't really go into. We just used the general build. And then another con could be, especially if it's a sophisticated hacker, if they get in, they could, because these are all open source, these honeypot softwares, because if they get in and they recognize immediately that they're in a honeypot, they can exfil, get out, alter their attack, and try to break into your network. So the software that we chose to use and that we found, it's really cool. It's called Teapot. It's a medium interaction honeypot. It's better utilized when it's cloud-based. You can just install it on your own computer, but if it's cloud-based, that just adds an extra layer of security. It's pre-built. The dashboard is extremely intuitive and easy to use. You can see those tools in there. Josh will get more into those. So how we built ours is we used AWS instance and created our instance and installed this Teapot software on that. And again, it's located before the corporate firewall. It's in the DMZ. And it's really cool because on AWS, you can customize which ports you want open so that you can monitor those ports and see what types of attacks are attacking which ports and all of that. Again, Josh is going to go into more of the data and the analysis part of it. And so with AWS, I ran mine. Mine was having some issues where I would be able to run it, collect some data, and then it would just stop working. Josh's was much more successful, but I probably ran mine for close to a full 24 hours, and it ended up costing me I think $6. And it was gathering a lot of data. So you could see that in a large organization, if they were to implement this Teapot software, it would cost more, obviously, but the price is definitely worth it. You'd get a good return on investment with this, with all the data that you collect. So with that, we are going to hand it over to Josh, and he's going to explain more about Teapot.
Okay, thank you. Hey, go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. Okay, so with the data that we gathered, I actually did get up to 5,772 attacks within a time frame of around 9 hours when I started it. With the unique source IPs, we're seeing around 1,100 right there. And that's from a variety of different attacks, from like DDoS attacks, botnet attacks, simple scanning and probing, just looking for vulnerabilities to be exploited. Attackers will usually use these employ a large number of unique source IPs to make tracing and blocking difficult. Um, with the honeypot, though, we're going to be able to help narrow that down and filter things out. And we can also see that with the attacks by the country, we're able to see that in this graph that the China is attacking us a little more. At least where I'm at, they're attacking me a little more. You can switch to another slide. And this right here is the time that I started on February 8th for a total of 9 hours. And the ports that were being attacked, it was an even 10% on all of them. Now, to help defend against these attacks targeting the dynamic ports is to have regular patching and updating software, implement network segmentation. I'm going to switch. And you could go ahead and push play. This is a quick little video just to show off the teapot running in real time. That's the public IP. And this is the instance that I created. Bunch of different little tools, the IP being used. First one we're going to look at is the attack map. And those are live attacks happening at that moment. The different protocols used for the attacks, SSH, Telnet, FTP, different countries and IPs, how many times those countries were attacking. And then when we get to the next slide, it's gonna, I believe, if I pronounce it right, it's Cowrie. It's going to be a open source honeypot software designed to emulate SSH and Telnet services to capture and log interactions initiated by attackers. Right there, you can actually see the actual percentages on the graphs, and then the ports and what countries, how they like to attack. They use Telnet, SSH. You can actually see how they like to use their attacks. In a minute, I'm going to have you pause the video, Riley, so we can look at, go ahead and pause it, so we can actually look at, these are the usernames on the left and the passwords on the right. These are the ones that are, they already have their hands on and they're just firing them off right there. And with this information gathered right there, we can better train and educate employees on the password changes that they need to implement if they're already compromised right there and their usernames. Um, we can identify vulnerabilities, close those ports that we gathered that data on which ones they like to attack, block specific IP addresses now that we've got their IP addresses collected, enhance the IDS and IPS with the patterns and signatures we found with the honeypot, and change the rules to better detect and block similar attacks. Um, it doesn't even have to happen um, for that long. This is just 9 hours, and we get gathered uh, a, a good amount of data to help protect the future, company and stuff like that. And that's all I have.